them tight. Yeah. Woo. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. We good?
All right.
Mm.
I'm good whenever y'all are. I'm ready, guys.
Are we live? Oh yeah. Streaming.
We good? We good? We live? Mr. J?
No, we can't hear
Say,
him. His mic's muted.
okay. All right. I think
We're
we're live.
live. We're
All
live.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All right. Welcome, welcome, everybody, to another episode of The Bridge. Coming to you live on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Twitch. Um, with that being said, I want to shout out everybody that's going to be on camera and tell you what this episode is. Today, we are having part three of Where Do We Go From Here? It's been such an amazing conversation. We've had to continue it on with a three-part series. Tonight, we're going to drill down and we're going to talk about voting and voting rights. And this is the anniversary of a women's voting rights. So it's a special day. Plus, this is election day. This is the day to vote for many of the elections and races that are really, really important to us. And when I say us, I'm talking about the people because these are the local, these are the community seats. This isn't the hotly contested presidential run, but these are the people that make decisions over our daily lives. So we're going to talk about that. And to get us going, let's introduce our folks. We have our producer and organizer, Mr. James, Mr. J. He's over there holding it down. We've got Rashad Henderson, Mr. Moneywise, talk a lot about our financial perspective, but also gives us a lot of our history. We have Chef Irie, who is our resident wisdom. The man be coming through, dropping some gems every week, keeping our perspectives right. And we have a guest today, none other than Mr. Detron Peoples himself, another financial expert. Like he said, if you getting money, we get money together. Let's go. This is going to be a hell of a conversation. Fellas, y'all ready to kick this off?
Yes.
Let's go.
All
All
right.
right. So topic one, Mr. J, fire it off. Where we at?
Topic one. How did we get the right to vote?
Ooh, man.
Wh-
Man.
And we're starting at the beginning.
Which one? Which one?
The one where they gave it to us and wouldn't let us have it.
Oh yeah, that was right after the Civil War, right during Reconstruction, when all of a sudden Black people was able to do stuff. Right
Was that
before they
14th,
pushed back with
14th
Jim
Amendment?
Crow.
14th and 15th Amendment.
No, was it the 14th?
I'm
15th.
gonna say
14th.
14th.
Say what?
14th. They gave us the right to vote.
No, because 14th Amendment is right to life, liberty, and property. So I think it's the 15th, I believe.
Fact checker.
Yeah,
It's the 15th.
James is mouthing 15th.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So
You
15th
want the
Amendment, we get
backstory?
the right to vote.
You want
Yeah,
the backstory?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's go, bro. We open it up.
All
There's a
right,
lot
so-
of people that don't know the backstory.
So let's
do it.
go ahead and get the conversation. So after the Civil War, basically you got a bunch of Black folks with nowhere to go, nowhere to stay. Okay, Black folks want to go places and want to work, but of course white folks is used to having slaves. So that's where you get the 14th Amendment that gives where you can't discriminate and people have the due process of law and you have the right to the life, liberty, and the pursuit of property. Because won't nobody selling nothing to Black folks, and everybody wanted brothers and enslaved folks back on the plantation. You couldn't go nowhere back then. That's where you start to see the Jim Crow and all of that stuff that y'all was talking about with Reconstruction. Now, the 14th Amendment wasn't enough because you would think that life and liberty and property would include the right to vote. Obviously, it didn't. So that's why we got the 15th Amendment. Because
Make it clear, right?
To make it clear, okay, people, since we let them free and we're going to keep them here and we're not sending them back to Africa or anywhere else, they kind of got to be productive citizens. So we're going to let the men vote, kind of. And
So
then that's
hold
where
up.
you get.
Can I interject right there? Because
Sure, go ahead.
an interesting piece of that history was that up until that point, the abolitionist movement also had the women's suffrage movement. It was wrapped in, right? They weren't necessarily separate movements. And if you don't know what women's suffrage is, that's the right for women to vote. Um, but when it became, widely accepted that they were going to give black men the right to vote before they gave white women the right to vote, the women's suffrage movement split off and it became very contentious because white women were like, oh, hell no. And these are the same people that were the abolitionists. So what happened was once we got the right to vote and women didn't, a lot of the backlash that you see after Reconstruction, which is where I think you were going to go to, you were going to talk about the Jim Crow laws, actually come from, some of the people in the women's suffrage movement.
Yeah, yeah. There's
Right? Anybody going to pick up with Jim Crow?
Yeah. Actually, Jim Crow. So it started. Jim Crow didn't start as Jim Crow as we might think. It started as the Black Codes, and you start to see
Black
those.
codes.
Yeah, you start to see that in 1865. So it wasn't way down the road, like immediately thereafter. You start to see those start to see those Black codes, and then later on into the 1870s, so on and so forth. That's where you really start to see Jim Crow pick up. People don't understand, dude. That like slavery wasn't the end of slavery was just the start of a process to give Black folks their rights, their civil rights, and it's really a humanitarian crisis. But that's a conversation for another show. So yeah, I'm gonna leave it there.
So I'm gonna fast forward us, right? So I'm gonna fast forward us, and I know Irie, we talked a lot about this in the last episode. So they gave us the right to vote, but then they had the white backlash, which always happens when Black people make progress in this country, and that's so right after Reconstruction, you have Black senators. We literally had the most patents filed by Black people during that period of Reconstruction than we've had in the last 100 years. There was actually more Black patents filed then than there is currently. Go figure that. That's a weird fact. But so we come after Reconstruction, we get the Jim Crow laws, which started with the Black Code, and we start to see suppression at the polls. And Irie, we were talking about this with the poll taxes and other stuff last week. If you want to refresh people to some of the tactics that they used to suppress our votes, even though we were able to vote.
The poll tax was one. The use of the jelly beans, guessing how much jelly beans in a jar. They would people would walk miles and miles to certain polling stations, and then when they got there, it was like, no, you can't vote here. Your polling station is 10 miles, someplace else. And so by the time a lot of those people would, leave that point, they're walking. So yeah, they're not gonna make it to vote. And then they had other, grandfather clauses, I guess, tied into what you were
literacy.
Yeah,
being literate.
Saying so.
Yeah. And so they do all this, and we get the Voting Rights Act. That's 65, right?
Yes.
Right, Rashad?
Yeah, Voting Rights Act. Yeah,
so we get
it's 65. Yeah.
So we get it's Brown versus Board of Ed, then the Voting Rights Act,
That's
which
56.
comes right after that,
Yeah.
right? 56 and then 65, and now we officially have the secure right to vote. In between that, we have to talk about, and we're going to talk about on the show. We'll talk about the 19th Amendment, which was women's suffrage, right?
Right.
But the same things that were happening to Black men were happening to Black women. And so we really don't see a true ability to vote until what I want to say, not even 65, even though it started there, 1970, 70 something. So, and I was born in 80. So you see what I'm saying? We haven't been voting that long, people. I guess that's what we're trying to say with this history here.
And that's part and parcel to the problem, man. Nobody really, I guess this can go back to history in schools and everything like that, actually teaching history and civics and even within our families, really helping people to understand what the importance of the right to vote. It took from 1865 to 1965, because you got to consider from the point of the 15th Amendment all the way to 1965 is really a white backlash against civil rights. That's why there's the Voting Rights Act of 1965. That's the government saying, hey, these people are supposed to be voting.
Yep.
The 15th Amendment wasn't enough. They had to do a Civil Rights Act.
And that's
so
civil rights, not the equal rights. Sorry, go ahead, Mr. J.
But let's hold up before we jump to the Civil Rights Act, because we have stuff that led up to that, so we can talk about women's suffrage and how women got the right to vote, but that still didn't include black women, because once they gave them the right, they put the black women right in the same category as the black men.
Yep.
Accountability. So representation, and we could we still see that in the way that in the way that districts are made up. Redlining. You can't move in this area. You can't move in that area. That all affects the ability of a group of one group of people or another to make an impact on the society in which they live.
Okay, everybody slow.
The thing I find interesting in this whole conversation is really phrased in a very nice, neat little package to say that, okay, this law was passed, and this is how we got the right to vote. But, however, at the core of things, we got the right to vote because, we made noise, we fussed, we we died, we bled, we suffered. That's how we got the right to vote. So it is really the blood, sweat, and tears of our ancestors that led to these laws being passed, not really the government, being accountable or, saying, hey, these people are missing out, or wait, something slipped through the cracks. That's a very polite way of putting it. And that's kind of the way it's taught in school. Whereas I picked up my daughter's, school package, and she pulls out her, American history book. And the first thing I said to her, 75% of the things in there is trash, but I'll fill in the blanks.
There you go. We need more parents like that.
So the right to vote came from the great grandparents, all that type of stuff, just willing to die for it, and feeling like, I guess because we were economically disenfranchised, maybe politically, we can gain some stability and equality in this great nation.
Right.
And D-Tron, man, D-Tron, bro, thank you for saying that, because as you mention it, that's a facet that we don't talk about a lot in history. Shit never happened for us until shit got real, right? For the government. And shit getting real for the government throughout our history was always led by our youth. You look at the civil rights movement, it was those lunch counter sit-ins that them young people refused to not go eat at these lunch counters. That was really a catalyst. You look at what's happening right now, it's our youth that's leading these protests, man. And it's really shit hitting the fan. And we have talking about the right to vote, we have a current president that's using it as a dog whistle, saying, hey, when Black Lives Matter shows up in your neighborhood, what are you gonna do? And the truth is, this nation doesn't move without pressure. So yeah, we just gave a history and we recited it very academically, which is interesting because we're academic brothers, but we are about that real. And the fact is that it only moves when we apply pressure, right? Like that's how this nation works. This nation when you apply pressure, that's when this shit moves.
Well, yeah.
You gotta apply the pressure in the right place, though. So it's not just pressure that's applied arbitrarily. It has to be very, very, precise.
Talk to me, man. Because I'm thinking we burn it down and we vote.
Well,
I'm thinking this.
Well, that's the thing. That's one of the concerns is, and this goes, we need to have a conversation about how media portrays this. But one of the concerns with the whole protesting is the media, right, they show the protest, but they don't do the deep dive. You know what I'm saying? Why they just top of the iceberg why these people are protesting. They don't get into the fact that, you know, Black Lives Matter isn't just about defunding the police. They're about community activism and improving the community, helping to educate people, all of the backstory, all of the filling in all of those supplemental things that a community needs to build upon itself. You know what I'm saying?
And defunding the police is the worst.
Yeah.
The term defunding police is so misleading. We could do better. We could do better with the term. I think we talked about this on one podcast that they put a term out there.
Yeah, dude. It's whether the structure of government in some instances just needs to be completely reorganized. You know what I'm saying? And so there's issues with that, but specifically when it comes to policing in Black and brown communities. You know what I'm saying? Go ahead. Okay.
No, go ahead. Finish, bro. Finish your thought.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. That's what the 14th and 15th Amendments are really about. What happens is after every amendment to establish some type of a baseline for Black folks, white folks revolt, and then you got to write something else. And then we got to fight more. And then you got to write something else. And then we got to fight more. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to just doing what the country claimed they were supposed to do and creating everybody equal and treating everybody justly, we got 3, 4, 5, 6 damn amendments and acts to make adjustments for the shit people were supposed to do from the very beginning. That makes it a human issue. But I'm gonna leave it at that.
Well, okay. We got a few of the people on the line, and I want to hear somebody else. Thank you.
Go ahead, D-Tron. What was you saying, man?
When you guys asked that question, how do we get the right to vote? And so I was like, all right, so there was an image that came up in my head. And I think it helps people remember points and then give them something to follow up on. So you can either say we got the right to vote through these amendments, and you can think of the Constitution, this piece of paper, and Capitol, Hill.
Right.
But the image that I think of, how do we get the right to vote? I think of Stokely Carmichael. Mm-hmm. Down there in Alabama and places like that, down there in the muck, going door to door under the threat of death, by local police and Klan and just good old boys. I apologize to my daughter. So that's the image that I have up in my head. How do we get that right to vote? And then it even gets into, okay, well, since we were so illiterate and a lot of the white politicians who were running for offices had different images on the ballots, even for their illiterate white constituents, where there was a chicken or a rooster or whatever, in order for Black people to understand who was in their interest. And that's where you get the image of the Black Panther and how that became the symbol for even that group. So it was that type of effort, that type of organization, that type of courage under the fear of death. So that's, to me, that's how I'm gonna say, how do we get the right to vote? I think of the young Stokely, in black and white, 150 pounds, just doing this thing, might not make it back home. That's how we got the right to vote.
But that D-Tron, that's what I want people to realize. Just because we had those amendments, these amendments did not give us the right to vote without us taking action.
Right.
We had these amendments, but we still didn't have the right.
I could do something.
So we had to go out there and fight for what's ours.
And
that's
what we meant. I mean, I think we have to know. So, hold on. Go ahead, Rashad. Go ahead. I'll jump in later.
Yeah, I was going to say, and to that effect, for each, like I said, for each amendment, there's always been a go-around. There's always been a loophole. You know what I'm saying? So with Brown versus the Board of Education, you can't discriminate, or there's no separate but equal. So what do? They fund schools based upon what? Property taxes, right? So now you got all of these rich white communities, and their schools is looking real good. Meanwhile, whether it's a rural poor community or urban inner city poor community, you know what I'm saying? When you don't have property, you don't own it, you're not paying those taxes like that, your school looks some type of way. You know what I'm saying? Beat up and what have you like that. So there's always loopholes. They always the government leaves wiggle room. So then we got to fight again. We got to go back and, like you're saying, protesting. One of the things I wanted to piggyback on Detron about is Stokely. When Stokely became the leader of SNCC, he took up that after John Lewis had left, right, to go on with Martin Luther King Jr. You know what I'm saying? So there always has to be somebody that can continue that fight and press on. You know what I'm saying? And that may be with the youth, but you don't just stop with the protesting. You got to protest, change some laws. You can't change laws if you ain't got nobody in office working with you. You know what I'm saying? So ain't no damn point to get out in the middle of the street hooting, hollering, and then go back home. You know what I'm saying? That's a waste of time. You could have stayed at home if you ain't going to go hard or go home.
So what you just said, Rashad, is emblematic of what we always talk about. Today's election day. Local elections, and as you rightfully said, you can't try to pursue laws being changed if you don't have nobody in there representing you. And the downfall that we see every year, whether it's a general election year, off election year, every 2 years, local elections get the lowest turnout because either people just don't care or truly don't understand what it means to put representatives in those places to fight on our behalf.
Right.
It's and that's why as we go back and forth with this, right? Every week we have these conversations, right? And we come to these points, these inflection points where it's like literally the same question, where do we go from now? And we see, that's what I said, I think all kinds of pressure is needed. I think we are intelligent enough, not just intelligent enough, we have enough history on our side to analyze what has worked and what hasn't worked and realize that it literally takes everybody having a part. We need the voting piece. We need the financial piece. We need the public pressure piece. We need the political piece, right? We need so many different things. And we need the young people that are willing to raise hell. We need the old people that are willing to put out money in pieces from radical to right. I think one of the best things we can do is, because we have so many different viewpoints on here, I want to hear from you fellas. Maybe some of we've been pretty tame on this. Yeah, maybe we should talk about some radical ideas about how many Black folks. But
you broke up on that last part, Chad. Say that last part one more time.
I was following up with saying that it's election day that are running, that are getting elected. You know what I'm saying? So we're getting people in office. We're doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But what else are we doing? That's my part. What else? And how are we holding the people that are in office to a standard? We can name 5 or 6 people that all of us know they're in office. How are we holding them to a standard as well? So I just want to put that question out there. I want to shape the conversation because we do get into this a lot. And now we've got a chance. Let's talk some more. Let's go deeper.
I have a radical idea because I would say that you guys are certainly a lot more political than I am. I've been a registered independent all my life. So I personally do not have any love or loyalty for either party. And so today is a big primary day. So, because of the rules of Florida, being independent, I cannot participate. And I have a lot of friends who, obviously are bleed blue individuals. And, they're telling me, oh, well, you're an independent, but you can't participate. You should, do that. And I say, well, for me, the disadvantage is, even if I do register to participate, I can only participate in one side. However, one side does not have all the answers or does not represent, fully my political, my social, or my, economic, beliefs and theories, et cetera. So I don't want to pigeonhole myself in that manner. So for those that I speak to personally, the radical idea that I toss around is for all us melanated folks to let's all be independent. If we're 14% of the population, if we all go independent, you know what I mean? They can't pigeonhole us and automatically assume this is what we want, this is what we need to tell them. You know what I mean? So it's like, hey, these people, such a large portion of the population, can swing any election in any direction. And if we don't know what they want, we have to talk to them as people and then actually deliver, because these people can go either way. And it'll get both sides to have more honest conversations. And it might even create what I think is necessary, which is a third party. There's two parties.
Yeah.
Well,
I like that. I like that too.
I like what you're saying, Detron, because I believe that we should have more parties, but I think I'm the only person on this panel that's a Republican. And
that's because you want the text messages.
and that's what I feel. You're right, Rashad. I get every bit of information that the Republicans are trying to do. Democrats don't inform you. They don't talk to you until they want something. While the Republicans are telling their constituents what they are trying to do and why they're trying to do it. Hey, I was always taught, know what your enemy is thinking. What's the best way to be part of them?
You're right, though. The Democrats, we've had a major issue with messaging. And I don't want to get off topic because I think, Detron, man, I think you just dropped, you hit something on the head there.
Yeah.
It makes sense, right? Like, listen, if one of the things, I mean, how many people got a lot of backlash this year because they said, hey, we don't want our vote taken for granted. We don't want the Democrats to assume that they're going to get the black vote. I mean, unfortunately, compared to who's in office, well, damn it, you kind of got to go with them. But I feel what Detron is saying, and saying that maybe we should just mass register as independents and make them work for our vote. I think that's a great long-term political strategy. For this election cycle, that ain't gonna really work.
Not so much.
Yeah, but as a long-term strategy, that's an amazing strategy for Black America.
I think definitely, dude. Like that is, and it's so simple. You know what I mean? Like that whole concept is just like, I'm Black. I'm gonna just be independent until we work this shit out. Somebody got to come with something. You know what I'm saying? Somebody got to come with something. I think that there would really be a shift in how we're approached as a community. You know
let me ask a question. So I don't know if it's being devil's advocate or what, but so we register en masse as independents, waiting for someone to show us something, whatever that something is. Say they don't show us something. Do you not vote, or do you just continue to wait until, and whatever that until? There's an expiration period to that.
Great question. Great question.
Yeah.
All right, Detron, where we at, bro?
Yeah, so part two to that.
Let Detron take that one.
So the part two to that, if we're all independent, then it's not about waiting for anybody to do anything. Because we're independent, we're unaffiliated with either party, then it's a discussion about what is it that we want. And then it's a conversation about what can we do for ourselves. So I think this is one big reason that neither party has to deliver anything, because there's not a discussion with us. It's not a conversation with us about what we want and what we need. Because we are affiliated with one side or the other, it is about us being on their bandwagon and going along with their agenda and whatever their campaign is, and us rolling with that. So they're not delivering anyway. So if we're all independent and they have to have a conversation with us, then okay, maybe one election will go by, they can blow smoke, and then things don't happen. But then another election comes by. So if let's say the majority of us think the Democrats have the right message and then they don't deliver, then the Democrats have to be fearful that next time around, or when the midterms come along, we may go with the Republican side, and therefore they lose power. So now if we're independent, they have to talk to us, and then now we can donate accordingly based on our values, and we all don't have to have one voice, but talk to us as citizens, as people. You know what I mean? And I think that's the best way to hold, any politician accountable, because you said this specifically from you to us. And I think right now, all the politicians who get into office, I think the younger ones might have good intentions, but then once they get inside, they have to toe the party line to an extent.
Yeah.
By breaking this allegiance and now making them have a conversation with the people about what the people want. And then the people are, active themselves. And now it's like, all I need you to do is maybe change this law, change this regulation, because I already have this going. And this would allow me to increase myself. I think we are too dependent on the government all around. So it's like, how do we get right to vote? Well, why do we all vote Democrat?
I think you're talking some good right now.
Yeah. So why does that not work? All right. So we're always talking about, the black votes, the black votes, the black votes. The black votes are always crucial. It's the crux, in every election. But what I see is, okay, say, yes, we're in, Democrats, a lot of black people vote Democratic. But what doesn't happen after we given the votes, if you want to look at it that way, is that we seem to think that that's the end of the road. We never push past election day. It's like, okay, yeah, we happy that you get the person in, but we never push past election day. We're not holding people to their feet to the fire until something is adversely affecting us, i.e. this whole 3-4 years, as you see things are happening. And then when that adversity kicks in, that's when we start to grumble and mumble and moan. It's like, oh, well, they're taking us for granted and blah, 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 because we weren't holding their feet to the fire right after election. We just took it for granted that, they're going to do what they say they're going to do.
What are we doing for ourselves? I think that's where the lack of accountability comes in, because if I have no personal agenda, I'm the CEO of my house, I'm the president of my house, regardless of who's in the White House. But if I don't have a plan or agenda, nothing that I am trying to accomplish, me voting for someone is a moot point to an extent, because if I vote you in, but I'm not doing anything for myself, I'm basically saying I want you to do something for me. And I think that's where the weakness comes in. However, we're actually being proactive as a community, as a society, as a nation of people, whatever, then it's easier to hold someone accountable, because there will be, quantifiable things that we are trying to accomplish, and then we can judge how hard it is to accomplish these things, or rate our level of success according to what it is that they did to help us do what we were doing for ourselves. It's not about voting for someone to do something for us.
I'm gonna push. I'm gonna put. Go ahead, Chad. Go ahead.
No, push back.
Yeah, I want to push back because I feel like well, maybe it's just us and our crew, but we know people that's pretty much go-getters. I really don't know a whole bunch of people who not doing anything. You know what I'm saying? And I want to believe that most people on some level are similar. They may not have the, the corner office dream, but they out there working, doing whatever it is that they do to try to provide for their family. The setback or the disadvantage for us is that we believe we black, and I say we, I say black folks because I believe most of us got good hearts. We tend to believe that if we're gonna put you, if we use our votes, they put you in office, that that process is going to be reciprocal, and it's not always that. That's one, and two. All right, we was talking about this last conversation. There's only like 16% black folks in America, roughly. I think it's less than that. But total minorities, all right, is 30%. The other 70% is white folks, all right? So even if you split that straight down the middle, that's 35%, Democrat, Republican. There's a whole lot, and I think this is what happened with the last election with Clinton, Clinton. That is a whole lot of white folks that was just like, no, nah. So even if, and I'm gonna close it up now, even if when we decide to do for ourselves, we still got some type of backlash. So we got to not only vote, but we also got to hold folks to, we got to do what we need to do in our own community, build for ourselves. And then once we get somebody in office, hold them to the fire to do what they need, what they promised they was going to do, knowing that they're going to have some pushback on the back end. Because, I mean, think about it. If you're in a good situation, how many of y'all is willing to give that up to help somebody else? You know what I'm saying?
In our group, we are. In our group, we are, right?
It's obviously not the same for other folks.
Well, it's not, because obviously, one of the tactics they've always used on black people is like, hey, look, I got you here. Don't you want to stay? Do you really want to go back down? So we know that that's a part of the plan. But I want to talk about a little nuance here. As I'm listening to you, as I'm listening to D-Tron, as I'm listening to Irie, and James, right? I think the nuance is this. We are go-getters. We have plans for our daily lives. Like D-Tron said, we're the CEO of our households. We got certain plans, but we don't have a cohesive plan or agenda for our political lives per se. When we had our leaders, so we know what we want to do in general, but we don't know what we're trying to do politically. So we don't necessarily have an ask. And while we are running ourselves good, we're not running our political lives as great. We don't have a local agenda, a national agenda. We don't have these things that when we had leaders like Malcolm Martin Stokely, you know what I'm saying? Like when we had those leaders, they had political agendas that they were pushing forward. They were letting us go. Now as a nation, black people don't have it. And Rashad, I hear you on the percentages, but those percentages lie, because even though we're a low number, we tend to be the deciding factors. And we have a lot of financial leverage that if we get together and we work on this independent situation, we can move. A lot of financial leverage. So I think that, I think there's a lot of nuance to this conversation.
Oh, for sure. I'm definitely in agreement. I feel like that if we were to like do something like that, I think Detron's idea, your idea is good. You know what I mean? I really think, but I think it's just the first step. We got to do that and all the other stuff.
What do we want politically?
Yes. What do we want politically?
Yeah, that's right.
And do you think we need a black leader?
I'm sorry, what?
Do you think we need a black leader as well?
I mean, that's always good. That's always good. Obviously, there's a lot of psychological trauma that we as a people still deal with. And I think that the race issue is always seems to be falling on deaf ears because the people outside of the Black community don't understand the psychological trauma and the mental barriers that exist as part of the collateral damage from the hundreds of years of, organized political, policies that were set in motion with us as the target. So they don't understand that. That's why they think they can't understand, well, why, we're still fussing or complaining or what have you. So a Black leader, like after the Floyd incident, you saw a lot of companies putting Black faces out in front. And I saw a lot of Black people criticizing them because like, oh, that's just for show or whatever. However, I think that's just as important because when you look at our youth, I have a 3-year-old and I have a 13-year-old, and you have a 9-year-old and I have 3 nephews. So as they are the future, adults, and for them to see people that look like them in various positions, and makes them think that they too can be in that position, and they will increase their belief in themselves, which is what gives them the fortitude to be diligent and consistent and sacrifice and take, actions, and, if it doesn't work, take another form of action to produce the results that they want. So I think having a Black leader is important. However, I wouldn't say take it as far as just because a person's Black, vote for them. It's because we want, quality.
We still want.
You want quality. It's if we want fairness, then if the white guy is better than me, then pick the white guy. You know what I mean? But if I'm better than the white guy, don't do me dirty just because I'm Black. And I think that's ultimately, what we, want as far as that regard. But politically, I don't know what it is that we want. If we have we went through civil rights, and maybe because I'm in the financial world, I think we're at a place like John Hope Bryant says, we need to push for civil rights. You know what I mean? So it is about our own financial independence, financial freedom. It is about closing that wealth gap, in that manner. Because if our net worth, instead of being less than $2,000 as Black people in America, and that's just the whole, if it were really $500,000 instead of $2,000, then the conversation we're having about politics would be totally different. You know what I mean? Because then we have, capital to donate to people's campaigns, and that will hold someone accountable a lot faster than, if I give you 10 grand, that's worth more than, maybe 10,000 votes sometimes, So,
no facts. You ain't lying.
How? Now, this is the question, and this is the question that I always struggle with, or I think the question I think that we miss in the conversation about taking care of our own community is, and I'm sure Detron, you could speak to this, is that credit. You know what I'm saying? Discrimination in the credit industry, the additional costs in loans that we tend to have to undertake. You know what I mean? Did you know? Well, you probably don't. But in the military, if you decide to go to the military, right, the difference in some of the top, I mean, like the top positions in the military government is your credit score.
Really?
The difference between the difference in between secret clearance and top secret clearance can be your credit score.
But do you know why is that?
That I know why that is, but it's not so much why that is, because there's different concerns, because I'm in the military. But what I'm saying is, because of credit and the lack of literacy, or when we get taken advantage of, right, as a group, when you decide to go and do other things, a top secret clearance is worth $95,000 on the outside. Okay. So it automatically, that systematic oppression that we're trying to overcome takes chunks out of that opportunity and that wealth gap. You see what I'm saying? So there's things that we have to educate within our own households, but we have to push our government and our elected officials to do something, so we're not always on the losing end of some of these exchanges.
So I'm gonna tell you, Shai,
system.
all you're saying to me right now is that D-Tron got a hell of a point. You're giving my man all kinds of
Yeah,
kudos. That's all you're saying to me, right?
I'm agreeing with them. I'm wholeheartedly there. We gotta get the money, but we also gotta understand. Look, ain't nobody just went and paid $350,000 cash for their house. All right, there's a lot of mortgage loans going on. You know what I'm saying? And those mortgage companies, they make decisions, right? And if we starting out behind the eight ball, it's a hell of a whole lot harder to get ahead.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
So one of the things I wanted to, Detron, you just said, um, I'm just taking out a little piece of what you said earlier about how we, as our own people, are always beating up on our own people, and to go back to to sort of look at the whole independence thing, what is independent and stuff like that. One of my bones of contention every week that we have, something always comes through the conversation that ties all of that back in. I'm always saying all of that stuff is great, but until we learn how to heal from all the trauma, and until we're able to actually work together and not see ourselves as our own enemies, those things seem almost, I want to say unreal, not, I don't want to say unreal, but it almost doesn't seem realistic because we're still not cohesive in how we should move, as a peoples. We used to at one time, and in this country's history, we did,
Mm-hmm.
and we've seen it in other civilizations prior to the existence of US, prior to the existence of other cultures, how we work together as a people, where we were doing for self, So I think
So
if we can stop when we put people in positions and we're there criticizing them and tearing them down and tearing ourselves down, that's our own folly. We are our own worst enemies at times.
And I think that's why I feel like we're too dependent on the government, because while like Rashad was talking about the predatory lending and things of that nature, um, if if it is true that the majority of Black folks, have bad credit and don't have any money and things like
mhm.
that, because I work with the general public, I will say that our issues are cultural, and a lot of that stuff is just bad habits taught, and passed down, from one generation to the next. And then once, the youth become, adults and start to separate from their parents and try to identify and find, their place in their city and their society and in this country, we try to do those things and we expand using those same bad habits. And in a lot of places we shoot ourselves in the foot. And what makes us have a common bond is the fact that because we repeat these same bad habits, we find other persons that look like us who went through a similar experience, and then they become synonymous with just being the Black experience. And we think that the government can fix it, or a lot of people feel like the government can fix it, whereas I'm in my perspective says that this is something that we have to fix, for ourselves. You know what I mean? So until the government changes the curriculum and, you can go to school for 12 years and know how to do your own taxes or know how to incorporate and start a business, until you know how a credit score is even, calculated. If they're not going to teach it in school, then we have to have enough interest in it ourselves, to learn it. We're in the information age. You know what I mean? So it is there at our fingertips. And if we're not doing that, if we're feeling like they sound good, but they're unrealistic, it's only, I think, it's tied to our really belief that we can't. So therefore, something else has to happen. And this is something that I run into with a lot of persons that I run into are trying to, work with, clients and things like that. They just don't believe that they can, based on their salary with the money that they have, that they can accumulate any wealth. And so therefore they don't try. You know what I mean? So, and they have to, and then they feel like, the system has to change or this has to change, for them to do anything. But, we can do a lot more. We can do better.
Right. I'm going to say that people probably feel that way about voting. You know what I'm saying? When the same issues you might have with the clients that you deal with, I would say some people probably feel that way about voting. They feel like that the system has to change before they go and vote, or you know what I mean, or this has to change, or it's just not going to make a difference anyway. But there's always going to be a section of people like that. You know what I mean? Can't help everybody, but I do believe there's enough of us who do want to help ourselves. You know what I mean? That if we continue to do the things we're doing and get more people like us around, then things will change. It's going to take some time. It ain't going to happen overnight, but, steps at a time, it'll change.
But that's why I asked the question. Go ahead, James. Go ahead.
How can voting help us economically? That's what I want to ask.
Okay.
So
I'm gonna let D-Tron take that. Go ahead.
So I was like, so Trump obviously talks about, he's going to cut taxes and, it's deregulation. So for the business owners, for the persons that are running companies, hey, that's speaking their language directly because, hey, you're going to cut capital gains tax, you're going to cut corporate taxes. That helps me economically because that improves my profit margins now. So if you're going to, in his opportunity zones, give me these tax breaks and incentives to bring my business into certain areas. And again, I'm improving my margins, which increases my, my profit base, which allows me to, I just make more money, so that's where politics helps people economically on, that end. But for the person that's not on that level, politics can hurt a person economically because, for example, with the credit card companies, at one point in time, they were allowed to charge a much higher rate of interest. So if you have a whole group of people who are unfamiliar and not financially literate and understanding how credit cards work, politically, if you allow the laws to charge people 30, 40, 45%, et cetera, then that hurts me economically because I'm working hard, I'm trying to pay this bill, but then most of the money is going towards interest versus the principal. It keeps me in debt even longer. So if that's a problem, then hey, getting someone to change that law helps me financially. Or if it, we change the laws to allow small businesses to get loans faster or qualify for different programs, and it helps me economically. However, I have to have some sort of movement on my own, some sort of activity that I'm actually taking a part of for this legislation to impact me. And I find that a lot of the legislation, as far as economics, the middle class is ignored. So if you're the working person making the $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year, then the new legislation really doesn't talk to you because it's either going to benefit, the top 10%, or it's going to benefit the bottom, 10%. Because then they'll see, monies directly because it comes in the form of assistance or more aid, or whether it's food stamps or unemployment or whatever it is, or even raising the minimum wage. So many of us, as a people, just in general, we look at even when we do go to college, we get degrees in fields that really are low paying. The majority of us, we pursue these low paying, degrees. So the politics, as far as, how much someone should be paid on the lowest end can help, or what it takes to start a business or qualify for loans, et cetera, can help us economically, but we still have to be proactive and actually be doing something for us to see it, materialize.
Right. I agree with a lot of that. Can you talk a little bit about where opportunity zones are actually located? Detroit? I'm asking you.
So where they're located? Well, so I can tell you this about opportunity zones. There are 8,764 opportunity zones that have been designated across the United States of America. Miami has 67, Broward County has 30. Now, exactly where they are specifically geographically and what neighborhoods, I don't have it boiled down to that level, but as far as the sheer numbers go, I know for Miami, for Dade and Broward County, there's a total of 97 opportunity zones. So in those opportunities.
And what exactly are those? So just staying open. So what exactly are those?
So an opportunity zone is basically an area that's, economically disadvantaged, disenfranchised, whatever word you want to use. And so these areas, low business opportunity, if we are collective, we want to open a business, we can, come into this zone and, as long as we hire X amount of, locals and pay X amount of money, then we're able to get a lot of tax breaks and, benefits that allow us to obviously, increase our profit margins because it's going to reduce our costs, reduce our taxes, et cetera. So the idea behind it is, okay, so if this area is a bad area, business really isn't going to open up here because the locals, the thought process is that they won't work hard or they're, not educated enough to, to come work for me or whatever. So you take your business elsewhere. And here's where the same way we have food deserts and, disenfranchised area where there's no grocery stores within the 5 or 10 mile radius. So now we're eating bad because we're getting food from the corner store and there are no vegetables there. Whereas, I'm up here in Plantation, I have a choice of a Whole Foods, a Trader Joe's, a Publix, two Publix, another Winn-Dixie, and, all these different options, and the produce is there. So I have an opportunity to eat healthier and live longer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So these opportunity zones try to incentivize businesses to bring opportunities here to give employment opportunities into areas that, basically are almost, I don't want to say abandoned, but, there's literally
they destitute, they neglected.
Exactly.
Highly neglected.
Exactly.
And I want to circle back to that real quick. Most opportunity zones are in Black and brown communities. That's just what it is. So with unless we're able to get and this goes into the laws, unless we're able to it's going to be more difficult to get the types of improvements and make the types of leaps and bounds if we don't have the government on our side. You know what I'm saying? We can progress, but we're going to progress at a limited pace. And that's I feel that's really what the government. I'm not a huge fan of big government or anything like that. I really believe all Black folks should be independent, but at the same time, we have to realize that we as Black folks didn't get in this situation by ourselves. You know what I'm saying? So we have to understand that we can have a Black Wall Street, but what good is it if it goes to get shot up by the government? This is the importance of having people in the government.
Let's hold that thought. That thought, dude. Because you're correct, right? But I want to keep us one on track, and two, there's some things we're going to circle back to. So yes, you're asking a deeper question, which I don't know if we're going to answer all that right here. I think in this first, in this first topic, we've identified so much so quickly, right? And that's why it's kind of spilled over. We try to keep our topics to about 25 minutes. We've gone we've gone a good hour on this first one because it's so deep. You know what I'm saying? D-Tron is dropping a lot of knowledge. What you said, what Ari said, everything makes sense, right? Everybody has a point. This is such a deep conversation that I want us to pause. Let's parking lot this. Let's talk a little bit about women's suffrage because today is that anniversary, and that's a very important milestone. And I think if I'm correct, guys, y'all can agree with me or not disagree with me. I think it plays in a lot to our current situations. I think the fact that we haven't, I think the fact that even as Black people, we talk about Black wealth, we haven't done as much for our women as we could have over the years, right? And I think, you know, I've said it on other topics. I think that that's a missing resource we're missing. So let's talk about women's suffrage because it's important right now, you know?
Well, they're definitely. I think in terms of support, I think it almost seems as if women have been left to fight for themselves.
Yes.
And whether we were afraid to step in, it was cowardly, whatever it was, but that didn't seem to stop them. There's like, what, screw that. We gonna do what we gonna do. And so I saw a post today, not today, a few days ago, a friend of mine posted on Instagram. It was a meme, and basically was saying, if you want, you got to make sure that you take care of your women for you as men to be successful. And I think a lot of us get to a place where we think that we've done it, whatever it is, and the women in our lives, whether that's a spouse, girlfriend, mom, sister, what have you, they're sort of like the accessory as opposed to the team, and when we realize the benefit of having that person, because frankly, women see things clearer than most of us do. I think most of us, we're still caught up in the success, what it means to be successful as men, whether that's the provider or what have you, but just to be the successful men. And we forget where the help came from to put us in that place. So when you see all these successful women, Black, white, Indian, Latino, Muslim, all that stuff, they are taking the reins, and taking the bull by the horns. Because in a lot of ways, yes, we have let them down, whether it's emotionally, spiritually, just in a lot of ways. Women are, this whole COVID thing, a lot of women are going through a lot of abusive relations in abusive relationships, and there's nobody there to say, step up to be that buffer. They're still taking the fight, by themselves. So when they step up and are successful, we got nobody else, and they're running ahead of us. I guess you can say we have ourselves to blame, because we were not inviting them to be along on the ride as a team. I think a lot of us see them as separate, but women are always willing to have us on their journey. If we're willing to put in the effort and put in the time.
Yeah.
Yo, bro.
I think that's more. I think that's also that's part of the misogyny in our culture. You know what I mean? That's just not writing it off or discounting it, but it's just a struggle among all the other things that we as Black folks got to deal with, and that's something we definitely gotta recognize and continue to put that forward. I mean, leaders of the Black Lives Movement, women. You know what I mean? There's they want to put on the $20 bill when Obama left. They wanted to put Harriet Tubman. You know what I'm saying? So you can thank Trump for that not happening. But those are things. Those are those I learned about Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth before I learned about Frederick Douglass. You know, so those are all things that we gotta make a constant effort to.
Also, so when you're looking at all the wins in the culture, and I guess the history, the wins that were brought forward because of women have either been underrated or underpublished or unreported, or they're just not, in the high, they're not highlighted in the way that they need to be highlighted, and then now periodically, if it wasn't the 100th anniversary right now, a lot of the gains that you've seen by women probably wouldn't be so known, if it wasn't for this anniversary, and then to have the VP candidate on the ticket for the Democratic side, that really, I think, it just kind of cool that it
that shows you
with this election day, and the election day having to be the actual anniversary. It ties in a lot of stuff, and it highlight it, giving credence and validation, to a lot of what women have done, and I think
not just women,
more of that needs
Black
to
women
be highlighted.
Yeah, Black women, bro. That shows you how powerful it was, man. How powerful Black women are, because the steady vote. When you count the vote in the Black community, Black women have been that steady vote. I remember when Biden was first, when it looked like he was going to be the front runner off rip. There was a bunch of people that was like, "Hey, if he's smart, you got to select the Black woman. You got to select the Black woman. You got to select the Black woman." And there was a lot of pushback. But when you see that that's exactly what he did, and when you look at his short list, what was it, 3 or 4? 4 people on his short list were Black women?
Yeah.
Yo,
you gotta
power.
Actually, I think 5.
Right?
I was listening to NPR, and they were talking about like the
smart self, Rashad.
The back. Well, this listen. It's Corona. If we still in lockdown, you know what I'm listening to. And they were talking about like all the different, they're talking about Black, what I'm saying, the Black vote, and how it's not all just one way or another. What I'm saying? We all got our different views. And they was talking about the Black women vote, and it was like, yo, they think one of the things that was mentioned was like the turnout, whether the turnout was going to be low or if it was going to be higher. And that you got to realize that a lot of kids is going back home. They're going to be with their parents. Their mama going to be in the house, or grandmama going to be in the house. Grandma going to vote. So guess what you going to do?
You going to vote too.
You going to vote too. You know what I'm saying? And just the power of word of mouth in the community. You know what I'm saying? You ain't just gonna sit here and do nothing. You know what I'm saying?
You know that's coming.
In that knowledge, you know what I'm saying? A lot of us, I mean, just like when I think about my own grandmother, just the knowledge coming from the back was like my grandma. I talked to my grandma, man. She was telling me about when she was growing up, how her family they were sharecroppers, and she used to ride on the plow on the donkey that my great grandfather would pull through the fields. You know what I'm saying? So just to understand that she came from that life, moved north, you know what I'm saying, and brought the family just that wealth of knowledge. That's something you got to respect. And if it's Corona time, come election time, guess what we going to do? I'm going to do what Grandma do. Where Grandma? Or where my mama? That's my. Hey, look, I ain't going nowhere, man. I gotta go take my mama to my voting booth. You know what I'm saying? You might as well come on. You might well, I'm there. I'm gonna go vote. I gotta drop my mama off.
So is it a situation now where, because of the culture of this country, culture and history of this country, talking about misogyny and everything, is that one of the main reasons why women who obviously have been heroines in this country, you don't see, they're not on monuments and statues and stuff like that. You know, I'm from a country where one of our national heroes is a woman. She was a slave, nanny, and they're not just the stories about her, but she is, affected in statue form. And as a lot of that stuff, is dealt with in history, and the pride of women. When we talk about, this country, I think, doesn't highlight those heroines. And I think as part of the country and the history, those things need to be in plain view and plain sight to say, hey, this is what they did, this is who they are, and we're gonna put them here. So I think so you don't have to be, as we have a term, you don't have to be Jim Screeching around trying to source the meaning and the history of what those women did. They need to be highlighted more, and talked about more, not just as a footnote or an afternote.
So I gotta jump in here and just make this general comment, because we having a hell of a conversation about women, and ain't no women on the podcast.
I noticed that. But as Michelle ended her speech yesterday, and taking a few lines from the dude,
let's go.
It's what it is. But I don't want to say it in a negative way.
No. I know what you're saying. Negative. What you're saying, we're still repping for them right now, and we're gonna have moments. And I think it is powerful in a way to see it's 5 brothers, 5 Black men repping for our queens. I think that's powerful. And obviously we're not speaking for them. We're speaking about them, and we're speaking to their strengths. It reminds me of I can't. I was gonna say something, but I can't, because it can be, if it's taken out of context, the Black women are gonna think I'm calling them fat. But there's an animal. Anyway, how about we just move on to the next?
Just skip that.
I'm gonna let it go.
Can I add one I don't know, I guess an additional perspective on top of the women's suffrage, because a lot of that has to do with the past and the accomplishments, the accolades, celebrating the heroines, which I totally think we should do as a people, as a country. I am a girl dad, and I'll be dang if I will sit up here and allow my daughters to tolerate a man who tells them that they can't do whatever. So not having it. So hey, my daughters can do whatever they want. So I'm team. I'm a girl dad. So I got 2 girls. So hey, I'm for women. I have no problem with a female president. So to speak on the subject of misogyny, so my mother's a baby boomer. She is 66 years old. And my mother, right, as a woman, and she is not alone, she is someone who is actually uncomfortable voting for a woman to be president. So while we celebrate a Black woman being VP, we have to ask ourselves, and maybe we don't have to address it here, but just internally, are we celebrating that, but at the same time, handicapping them because we're really not comfortable with them being president?
Why, we have to ask that now.
Why did Kamala drop out so soon to begin with, when she was raising more money than Biden? And now we always want to be happy with. I mean, cool, we're happy.
But you
get what I'm saying. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, are we capping? Are we celebrating women in the past? Cool, but are we still stunting their growth by limiting how far they can go? Are we as men ready to see the woman be the head of the country, since politics is the, primary topic here? Because I know my mother is not ready for that.
Well, obviously, and she's not the only
But
one that has
men
those
are.
views and opinions. She's not the only one, because
Mhm.
even when Hillary was, at the pinnacle,
Yes, that's what I was gonna come with, Chef.
talking about, breaking glass ceilings, there was there was a shitload of women that said, nope, nope, not that we weren't ready. They just didn't think that that's what this country needs ever. So that's something that you have to contend with, but the way, if that the ticket is successful, then there's first time for everything, I guess, in this country's young history, to probably see that materialize in some way, shape, or form, and there might not be anything that some people can do about it, but they're gonna try.
Yeah, because that's what brought down Hillary, y'all. It was the women that turned around and ended up voting for Trump.
But that's white
It's
women
these white
now.
women that turned around and voted for Trump. No,
White
but listen,
women.
listen. That's right. Hold up, but here's the issue though, right? We have layers. I always talk about nuance, right? There are older black women that would have voted for Hillary that will now have a problem with Kamala.
Believe that.
You see what I'm saying? There's a nuance here. I think men are ready. I think men are ready to
Woo,
see
woo,
to
woo,
see a
woo.
woman. I
Men as
don't know
in
if
men cross
women.
the board, or black men?
Okay, let's go black men.
I was getting ready to say black men can handle it.
We okay.
You gotta specify that, because when I'm just saying, I'm being real. We may be able to say that because, yeah, because we know what the worth, I think, and the value of women. Um, but as you continue to see, white men still don't hold women in the same in that same regard as they do other men.
Nope.
Other
And,
men.
They feel
and
like
also,
they still have a place, if you
Yeah,
will.
yeah,
you have your place.
but
Go be
also,
in your place.
remember now, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna pull one of Chad's moves now. This is nuanced because having despite the disadvantages that may come with being um, being a white woman and having a place, that's still better. That place is still better than a black man or a black woman. So that's why you see you saw a shift. You know what I'm saying, for a lot white women being uncomfortable. So some of them being
So
uncomfortable.
fact checker said women weren't ready. Women are ready for a woman, but they weren't ready for Hillary. So in the same token, if women are ready, are they ready to see a black woman?
And that's a question. I
And
mean,
that's
and
women
That's
across the
that's
board.
but I think that question, I think that not just black women, but white women. Because remember, you split it's still a numbers game. It's still, but politics, voting is still a numbers game, right? I think that is going to be how, and that's unfortunately with this
So
with this election has been
the
about.
numbers are still in suburbia.
Yeah, the numbers, because unfortunately, all of Black America isn't independent like the Trump. We didn't go with the Trump's plan. most of us is
it's
still
not too
most
late.
of us
Not too late.
are registered Democrats. Okay, even though we tend to have conservative values, you know, husband, wife, two kids, whatever. but we're still in a society that doesn't really want to recognize that we have the rights to those things, right? Because let's be honest, I give you a fact. Now I won't go too far. The Asian American controversy with Harvard and Yale, when they was complaining about them not getting spots because of affirmative action, right? They didn't get the spots not because black students were being let in, because the black students that did get in, most of them placed the top third of their class and outperformed everybody else. Like everybody else. Most of those were black women, all right, to start off. But they found that they didn't get the slots because like 70% of those selected to go to Harvard and Yale are alumni. They're kids of alumni and people that donate to the colleges. And as we all know, most of those folks is white.
Okay, so I'm trying to figure out your point here. Bring us around. So
the point that I'm bringing it around. The point is, white folks still, no matter how hard we fight, these white folks still got to get behind us. And if they don't, Joe Biden ain't gonna be elected because it ain't but 16% black folks. So we still need some friggin' help.
But I gotta say though, I still think, bro. I think we tipped the scales. I think
we do.
I think that the selection of Kamala was a genius move. Biden has had a couple of great things. One, the pandemic. The fact that he does not have to go outside and make a bunch of speeches, okay, has been amazing.
It's been awesome.
But two, it's been awesome for him because when he was speaking a lot, we were like, oh.
Jesus, why?
You know what I'm saying?
And I'm not calling him Uncle Joe. I refuse.
I'm with you. But for him, though, picking Kamala now we have a different, perspective. I think that black women really do make that much of a difference, man. From all the people, they could have went anyway. And there's people that do this. I think that selection gives him the opportunity to tip the scales and take out Dumpy. And now the question I have for us as we wrap this up, because we're coming to our 15-minute mark, right? Like we're coming to the close. The question I want us to talk about is if they take it, right? And this would be the first time in I don't know how many presidential cycles that they break a 8-year streak, because normally a president gets in, they're serving 2 terms. It's been that way for a long time now. If Biden and Kamala take this, what do we, as black people, as black Americans, what do we want and expect from them? How will we hold them accountable differently than we did when we had Obama and just say, hey, we're thankful we got Obama. We got Democratic support now. Obama didn't even have Democratic support in the Congress. If Biden gets in, he has a Democratic Congress. How are we going to hold them? What are we asking for, y'all?
Is it going to be any different than when President Obama was president, when black people thought that he was there for black people? I mean, are we gonna hold Kamala to the same light? She, say she's, that ticket is successful. Are we as black people going to say, well, okay, yes, we have a black person in office again. She must do everything for black people. I mean, West Indian people, Indian people, whatever you want. Is that the same line that we're gonna put the same rabbit hole we're gonna go down again?
No. I don't think we're saying that because Kamala is black, she owes black people something. I think what we're saying is black people. You may
not say that. You may not say that, but there are individuals that are saying that right now. Yes, if she's in, we want her to represent us and do things for us because she is black.
I'm going with D-Tron on this one. I'm like, listen, y'all, if we help get y'all in, you owe us. You owe me something. Nas style, son.
But
if
what
not,
are we asking
we going
for?
Independent. That's what I'm saying.
What is it?
What
are we asking for?
So I'll tell you, me personally, because I have associates on both sides of the aisle,
Mhm.
obviously. So, and I've always been that guy when I was in a corporate, environment where the other folks were comfortable asking me about us, and I had to explain a lot of us. So I would tell you this, because I'm independent. So Democrats and Republicans, I have issues with both of them. And yeah, that's why I've always been independent. So my number one issue is healthcare. And so I do not like
Mhm.
Joe Biden personally. However, I recognize that through him, regardless of who his VP is, that is going to allow me to maintain my healthcare. And and I understand the history of healthcare and why we don't have universal healthcare in this country altogether. You know what I mean? I think it's very important for the universal healthcare, or at least the Affordable Care Act, the way that it is, maintain and remain intact, because it allows small business owners like myself to remain independent and grow the business. If I have to work a job in order to get healthcare, then that's going to be problematic, because I'm just
Yes.
not on that page. So my main issue is healthcare. Kamala as a person, because we're in a situation where now criminal justice reform is picking up steam. And I personally, I think Obama did a lot of things. They were not blatantly, hey, Black people, this is for you. However, there was a lot of things that changed that definitely benefited Black people, because we were the, collateral damage, for a lot of policies. So I think that Kamala, being California's former top cop, seeing the good and bad within the criminal justice system, and at least having things on record that she has done to try to improve things out there in California, while the VP spot is usually sort of like a paper title, they really do anything. I think that she could be in a position to carry that mantle forward, and to make sure, okay, the let's say the defund the police conversation remains mature, so that way people will understand that it's not no police at all, nobody's that crazy or say anything like that. So we have to rephrase it so the blacks, whites, Hispanics, everyone understand, okay, what the problems are. Yeah, I think somebody who's on the inside has a good opportunity to make positive changes. So for me, it's healthcare, and to continue to advance the issue of criminal justice reform. Outside of those two things, I'm really not asking for anything else. For me, my third issue, which is not even on the Democratic agenda, is really reforming our educational system. So all of us, our kids are doing this online thing. Take advantage of the opportunity to have more agency over what your child is learning. You get to realize how much useless information the schools are giving our kids, and it's an opportunity for us to fill the gaps. So that's a great opportunity, but I say, but that's not even on the agenda right now. So healthcare and criminal justice is all that I want.
But look at how impressive it would be if education was actually the number one thing.
Mm.
And when I look at the educational system, period, and the attitude towards education here in this country, it has never been in the top tier of things that needs to get done. It always seems like it's an afterthought. But we all know, if you're educated in the right and proper way, that's the basic foundation that everything else spurns from. Off of that. But we've never been able to make that a number one priority. I mean, shit, we can't even get kids to go back and safely to school. We can't decide whether charter schools are better. We can't decide whether public school is better. We defund, we take away. I'm just appalled at a system that says teachers, who I think are one of our should be our national treasures,
Yeah.
but they are consistently treated like they are still on the lowest rung on the totem pole. They get paid the least, they get the most disrespect, not just from the cities and districts that they're in, but they get disrespected by the parents, because parents don't respect them at all, you know. And so just imagine if education was the number one thing that we canvassed and tried to effect the most changes, in educational system, how
So,
differently things would be.
wow. I mean, someone in our chat, they just said teachers are traditionally women, so they tend to get the short end of the stick. That has a lot to do with that. I agree with you. I think education.
Then it just sort of ties right back into what women have been fighting for the last 100 years. I think it has been the respect. We still do not respect,
Yeah.
the value and the worth of women, especially in the political arena.
And
Mm,
what Detron was saying, that when we tend to go and get, when I say we black folks, when we go to college, oftentimes we go to college to get a degree that's not really
I think.
that high paying degree, but the degrees we do get are socially based degrees, because we get degrees in which social worker, counselors, things like that. We get degrees to go back and help. You know what I'm saying? To
Yeah,
help, to
that's
help,
what's
to
shot.
help those.
That's once again,
What's
and once
up?
again, that's mostly women too. I said, and once
Yeah, yeah,
again,
well, yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah,
mostly our women.
yeah, 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 yeah. Well, yeah, I got my degree was in teaching, so. But that's something that we experience. You end up with women as teachers. So being women in general, they get the shit into the stick. And then black women, uh, even tending to be even lower paid than their white counterparts, right? The social workers, case workers, all of these different things, and it's just hard. It's hard all around. But then we look at a school system. Even though teachers may not get paid well, the teachers in the white areas, they tend to they getting a little more money because they can scrape together some more cash. Private schools, they get. I've applied. They get paid pretty decent, but that's because those schools
No, they get
can
paid
pull
well.
together more cash.
No, they get paid well.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
they get paid well, but they're also look at who's going to those schools. So then we end up with this, excuse my language, fucked off lottery system, right? To get a couple of colored folks to jump over here in the pot with all of these really nice white schools, and there you got integration, and that's you still got that. That's not
So,
right. That's not how the education system is supposed to work.
so I gotta pull us in and wrap us up, right? I always give us time to give our individual wrap ups.
Yeah.
But basically, what I hear you saying is that if we do two things, if we get some education together and we find better ways to support our women, we're gonna have a better society overall, right? I think that's what I hear us saying. You know, and not to go, not to take away from what Detron was saying about healthcare and other stuff. I think that all of those things, when we look at social issues, it has always been our Black women that have been most concerned with that, which is why we find them in education, the social services, and in the technically low wage jobs,
Well,
because they're concerned about
yeah.
making sure that.
So
And hold on, so I'm only saying that I'm
we're
jumping off.
we're
Average
five
thing.
black, yeah. So we're five black guys right now, and none of us would be here without our black mothers, because of our black mothers.
Facts.
Okay, and if as an adult, male adult, you sit down and think about all the things your mother did to make sure that not that you were happy and fed, but to make sure that you passed a certain point, that you were like past the craziness, the madness. Mothers are always going to be moms. okay, and especially your black boy, you know, especially a black boy in this country, you know, they especially single mothers, you know, especially single moms, you know, where they're holding it down in ways that people can't even comprehend and fathom how they did it. You got moms out there, single, full-time job, whether they got one child, two, three, whatever it is, and they're going through so much adversity, and then you hear, yeah, and I'm doing my master's, and I'm doing my PhD, and I'm doing this, and I'm doing that, you know, and they, you know, so basically they're saying, regardless of the circumstances, we're going to find a way out of those dire circumstances to make it better, not just for me, but for my kids, you know,
Yeah.
and you know, yeah, when you look at it, it's like, wow, you know, that's it's like an amazing thing to just sit down and think about, because none of us would be here without our black moms.
It's pretty amazing, for real. I mean, yeah. D-Tron, brother, you want to give some last thoughts, man, as we wrap up?
I appreciate the conversation with you gentlemen. Since women are the subject, between us five men, I'll say that as just for anybody in the audience that's listening. One of the things when I'm talking to the clients about money, I get them to try to understand money in terms of time. So that's really how you assess value to a dollar. So when we talk about women getting paid less, women have to work 18 to 20 months. Black women have to work 18 to 20 months to earn what a white male earns on average in 12. So just to put the income gap in perspective and measure it by time, you're working 6 to 8 months longer to make as much as the white guy did in 12. So as we talk about women's suffrage and the accolades and the heroines, to move forward as a society, we definitely have to look at, if we're going to respect them, then allow them to lead us in politics, allow them to lead us, professionally. You work out, your strengths and weaknesses, personally at home, because every household is different. But, I'll just drop that last little bit, there. I heard you guys were rooting for different people you were running for. And I didn't have any dogs in any race today. I'm independent, so, I will go vote in November. Let's keep our health care and let's do for ourselves, Black people, whether you want to be Democrat, whether you want to be Republican, whether you want to be independent. At the end of the day, whoever's in the White House, whether it's a Martian female, they can't solve the problems that we face, personally and individually, because really our issues are socioeconomic, I think, more so than racial. But because our socioeconomic issues were constructed from racist ideologies, there's still an attachment to date. So if we're going to break those mental shackles off of our own brain, you know what I mean? We have to understand that, hey, I don't want to say that's bad because what happened to Floyd. The opportunity is there. The opportunity is there for us to do more for ourselves. And then we have more, then it'll help us demand more, because we don't have anything to bring to the table. When you cannot negotiate in a win-win situation, we have nothing to offer, that makes whoever is on the other side, who has all the power, less inclined to do anything for you. And you have less ability to hold them accountable.
Yeah.
That's it.
Between you and Irie, man, that's a whole speech in and of itself. I mean, James, bro, we just take the last two conversations from the show right there and just put those out as clips, man. Shit. Just saying. So, D-Tron, bro, thank you so much, man. Like, yeah, y'all did that, man. Thank you.
What is it? D-Tron, the people's what? The people's what? The people's.
Yeah, D-Tron Peoples. And let me shout out my partner Sharika. That's the name that you see on there. That's my girlfriend, fiance, mother of my second child. And we run the business together. So, we're definitely a team. She has her strengths, I have my strengths, and we definitely do not compete with each other. We recognize that we are after the same goal. So when it's better for me to do something, she says, babe, you. When I say it's better for her to do something, babe, you. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, we win.
And brother, as you're shouting that out, can you just shout out how people can find you on your socials and stuff like that, so people know where to find you at, fam?
Sure. I mean, I only do Facebook and Instagram, so just type my name. So yeah, I don't have any aliases or anything like that. Because if you want to find me, DETRONE, and boom, there I go. My Instagram is open, so boom. My Facebook's a little private, but you friend me. As long as I see you're a real person, I'll accept you.
No bots. No bots.
And I only went private on the Facebook because after I participated in a couple of protests, I got engaged in some conversations with other communities. I'm up here in Plantation, and engaged in some conversations that some of them turned aggressive, and then they started copy saving copies and images from my Facebook. So I had to just go ahead and make that private. But
yeah.
It's all good. We ain't scared now. We ain't scared.
Listen,
we here.
Yeah, we right here.
We ain't scared.
No, not at all.
I hold some Republican values now. Don't come knocking on my door. I have some Republican values now.
Yeah.
Right.
I think at the core we're all conservative. We're all very a lot of us are very conservative, and we have conservative values for sure. But to address the requests, you can find me in Instagram. I am Chef Irie, Twitter Chef Irie, and my business page on Facebook, Chef Irie or Chef Irie Spice. So that's how you can find me out there in social. I will be giving away another cookbook because, as you know, I'm rebuilding my new IG page. So once I reach the next level, I'll be giving away another cookbook from the Taste the Island show. That's where we at. Everybody working on individual projects. So I'm working on some other stuff. So hopefully I get the motivation to get some of those projects started and completed. So look out.
Let's go. Rashad, man.
Yeah.
Where you at, brother, with your last thoughts?
No, my last thoughts are education is paramount. Just really as an ask. We as Black folks, we need to ask. We need to ask for a lot. You know what I mean? We've done a lot. We should ask for a lot. We also need to really continue to work to build within our communities. Reach out to people like Detron, people we know that are working in the financial realm. You know what I mean? But we need to work on ourselves, and we need to ask the government. We need to ask the government for a lot. You know what I'm saying? If you don't shoot for the moon, you know what I mean? So that's really where I'm at with it.
All right, Mr. J, what's your last thought, sir?
You know me, I'm gonna keep it short and sweet. We need to encourage and support our Black women in all their endeavors, and just push educating ourselves on what's out there, what we need to vote for, who we need to vote for, and why we need to vote for them. That's good for me.
I love it, man.
Word.
Hey, I there's not really much to say. I did want to, with my last thoughts, I want to thank every single one of you brothers that's on the show. Detron, thank you, man. You've been an amazing guest. Your participation, the information and knowledge you dropped, just that last jewel about it taking 18 to 20 months for a Black woman to earn as much as a Black man is just amazing, dude. I get life from this show. White man. Thank you, sir. But yeah, man, look, I get life from this show. And, as we're wrapping up, I just want to say to everybody out there, thank you for joining us. And if you're finding out about us for the first time, if you're catching this episode on what's effectively a rerun, because internet, it lasts forever, go back through. This is the bridge. This is Black Men Conversation. This is Barbershop Talk. So you're going to get a little bit of everything. You're going to get some wild theories. You're going to get some stuff that's right in the pocket. You're going to get some things to the left, to the right. But it's all about having a conversation and exposing different thought patterns and exposing point of views that you're not going to really hear on mainstream media as much. So we want to thank you for tuning in. We want you to know that we're here every Tuesday, 9 p.m. This is The Bridge. This is what we do. Look out for us. Tune in. Tell a friend to tell a friend and share this, man. Let's get this word out there. We appreciate you. We'll be back next week. We're signing out.
Well, don't sign off yet. Don't sign off yet, bro. Look.